This man had a spider living inside his stomach. This woman ate 70 spoons and forks. And this little girl had magnets inside her stomach. In this video, we're gonna take a look at the scariest things found in the human body. You won't believe what this man found in his lung. When we were little, we were told that if we swallowed seeds, a plant would grow inside us. Well, it actually happened to Ron Sweden. At first, he thought that he had lung cancer, but then discovered that a pea plant was growing inside his chest. The pea accidentally entered the incorrect tube, and the plant used his body as a host. Sounds funny and scary, right? You'll feel dizzy when you hear this next one. A creepy crawly in your eye? The first question anyone would ask is, how did it even get in there in the first place? The truth is, nowadays, having a worm in one's eye is a common occurrence. Some of them contract them while operating a car, while others get infected before the worms start to spread. When the physicians informed John Matthew of Cedar Rapids that a raccoon worm was consuming his retina, he almost lost his sight, but he didn't. Thank heavens for doctors. Once upon a time, a man swallowed a row of his own teeth. This may sound crazy to believe, but it actually happened. An Indian man whose name is not known suffered from an epileptic seizure in the middle of the night and swallowed his upper teeth in the process. He woke up to find his teeth missing, and he just went about his life like it was nothing. But after a while, he started feeling serious pains in his esophagus, so he had to go for a checkup. It was discovered his dentures were hanging inside his esophagus. Luckily, doctors were able to remove it, and he survived. If you think swallowing teeth is bad, you won't believe this next story. You won't be able to guess where it was found. Can you take a wild guess? Rosemary Alvarez was once in an unfortunate situation after eating food contaminated with human feces, and afterward had tapeworm in her brain. Fortunately, physicians were able to totally clear her brain, and she recovered perfectly. Who wants another creepy crawly story? A 76-year-old lady from the Czech Republic reported having terrible stomach pains and blood in her pee in November 2014. Two worms about 4 inches long had gotten into her body, and they were feeding on her kidney. The worms were said to have gotten into her body after she ate a fish that wasn't properly cooked. So kids, always allow your mom to do the cooking. You don't want worms in your stomach, right? This little kid found something in his ear. Brace yourself up, this might cause you to vomit. An 8-year-old boy was taken to the doctor because he couldn't hear clearly, and he thought it was a wax problem. However, when he arrived, the doctor took a closer look inside, and he couldn't believe his own eyes. There was some wax in his ear, quite all right, but what he had not expected to see was an unpopped popcorn kernel. So be careful with that popcorn. It just might pop your ears shut. This man right here coughed up a piece of metal. It's one thing to have a popcorn kernel in your ear, but it's entirely different from having a nail up in your nostrils. I mean, a sharp nail. How? Brack Sanchez's family rushed him to the hospital after he complained of a horrible earache. When he got there, the physicians tried to put him through an MRI, but they couldn't because it hurt him, only for him to cough out a nail through his nose later that day. This nail looks rusty, and it happened to have been in his nostrils for 30 years. I'm pretty sure you weren't even born then. Everyone described the incident as a miracle. We understand that you're totally scared, but that's not the only nail to have caused problems for the human race. This time, the nail was 48 millimeters long. In an odd event, a Chinese man with a searing headache visited the doctor, only to discover a big nail lodged in his head. Luckily for him, the doctors were able to remove the nail that was stuck in his skull after spotting it in the x-ray. Enough about nails, let's swim a little. A fish swimming in a little boy's lungs. There's something about kids playing odd games, and this is a typical example. A young boy from India swallowed a 3.5-inch long fish. Instead of the fish passing through his esophagus and probably ending up in his stool, the fish had other plans. It went through the boy's windpipe and got stuck in his lungs, causing breathing problems for the boy. Thankfully, he got to the hospital early enough, and the fish was removed through an operation. But you wouldn't believe this part. The fish survived for the entire time it was inside. There's something about worm getting into the eye. The sight of this is totally gross. I mean, is that pink eye, or is there something moving inside? There's a reason why some of the scariest creatures in movies have been inspired by parasites, something that feeds off their host. This Indian man had a 5-inch long worm removed from his eye. How did the worm get there? Well, no one knows, and even the doctor couldn't figure that out. By the way, what's happening in India? There seems to be a lot of weird events going on there. Maggot after maggot we found in a man's nose. It's a serious case for maggots to be found in the nose, but when it does happen, it's referred to as nasal myiasis. It may occasionally result in meningitis and death, or malformations of the human nose, face, ears, or other organs. Another man in India had up to 50 maggots removed from his nose. According to the doctor, if the maggots weren't removed on time, time, they would have eventually eaten his brains and killed him. Gross! Bugs in scalp. A Colorado guy experienced severe scalp itching in 2007. He tried a variety of unique shampoos, ointments, and other items, but the itching only became worse and worse until it became very painful, so he decided to have it checked at the hospital. After having a look at his scalp, the physicians discovered many botfly maggots, each about the size of a coin. That's huge! But this was not the only time something totally horrifying had been found on the human scalp. Live maggots are another occurrence of living organisms found on the human scalp. Do you recall the scene from the movie Mummy, where the characters' bodies were invaded by insects that were munching on their flesh? Aaron Dallas's situation certainly fits that description. After a journey, he unexpectedly discovered some pimples on his head but chose to ignore them. He felt the bumps move as he touched them, but he assumed it was the blood pumping. Later, doctors discovered that he had live maggots on his scalp. Number 1, not 2, not even 3, but 7 in total. Why would a fir tree grow inside the lungs? If you've got some weird feeling up inside your body, my advice, go and see the doctor immediately. This 28-year-old man from Russia initially thought he had a tumor, and even doctors believed it was a tumor. But during the course of the operation, it was a fir tree growing inside the man's lungs. Before that time, he had been coughing up blood and had complained of excruciating chest pain. The medical team thinks Mr. Sidorkin inhaled a seed that eventually grew into a tiny fir tree inside his lung. So be careful with those seeds that you swallow. You don't want an orange growing inside you. Fish in a bladder. The lungs aren't the only place where fish have been found in the human body. A man once narrated how a fish got inside his penis while he had to urinate. As this man was relieving himself in a small river, suddenly he felt a tingle in his private area, only to find out that fish was already halfway in with its tail left outside. So he tried to pull it out, but the fish was determined to get inside that area. He had to remove the fish through a 2-hour surgery. This one would help you remember to always keep your mouth closed and not eat everything you see. A 63-year-old South Korean woman felt like something was spreading in her mouth after eating a half-cooked squid in a nearby restaurant. She made the decision to see a doctor because this unusual sensation continued. She was shocked by what she found. The doctor discovered squid sperm inside her mouth. Apparently, the dead squid sperm sacs were alive and penetrated the woman's mouth. That's a weird way to carry a baby for another species. Let's talk about the giant hairball. An 18-year-old lady once complained of a worrisome weight loss of 40 pounds, vomiting, and intense stomach pain. In an x-ray, they found a dark and equally large mass that they assumed to be a tumor, but on second look, alas, it was a giant 10-pound ball of hair. But that's not all. The ball was over a foot in length, so we can say she's got a cousin living inside her belly. Medical records show that there's a condition known as Rapunzel syndrome, in which a hairball snakes through your intestines and then... stop. All right, we will. Let's calm your nerves a little bit with this next one. A man carrying his twin in his stomach. This story is sad, touching, and scary. Sanju Bhagat endured a lot of bullying as a child in Nagpur, India, because of his unusually huge stomach. This huge stomach continued to grow for 36 years. At a point when the pain was too much from carrying this heavy stomach, Sanju went to the hospital. At first glance, doctors assumed the growth to be a tumor, and the surgery process began almost immediately to remove this tumor. But doctors were met with the shocker of their lives. The growth was a half-formed fetus, which was only possible to be a twin brother. The deformed fetus had hair, legs, nails, bones, and a jaw with teeth. Seriously, it feels like a scene from a John Carpenter movie, but like 10 times worse. Okay, maybe that's a little bit much. But Sanju was able to live a normal life afterward, and the fetus died almost immediately. Here's a parasite, but not just any kind of a mon. This one had superpowers. After traveling through Southeast Asia, backpacker Daniel Lavrani discovered a 3-inch leech that had been residing inside her nose. The 24-year-old blamed her weeks of nosebleeds on a ruptured blood artery caused by a motorcycle accident, unknowing to her that that was not the case. However, she only realized a squirming object was in her nose as she was in the shower one day. Quickly, she rushed to the emergency room, and the doctors discovered that she had a 4-inch leech in her nose. Shockingly, the leech was still alive. This man here inserted an eel into his anus. Sometimes we tend to be the cause of our own problems. In 2017, a man in China inserted an eel into his butt as he believed it would help him with his constipation problems. But it turned out to almost take his life. An eel swam up to his intestine and decided to make it its home. Contrary to what the people of Shanghua may believe, there are numerous risk-free alternatives to traditional methods of treating constipation, including increasing one's intake of veggies, water, and laxatives. And no, not live eels. If you think these were scary, things are about to get weirder. Keep watching to see what's next. A whole plant in a little girl's ear. Ran, the toddler, had been picking at her ear for several months. According to the Beijing Evening News, it appears that a seed got stuck in her ear canal. By the time her parents took her to the Capital Institute of Pediatrics, the dandelion had entirely grown into Ran's ear and filled her ear canal wall. Luckily for her, the doctors were able to take it out. Here's a serious lesson for you kids. Don't put any seed in your nostrils, ears, or mouth. Another time, insects managed to crawl into the ear of an American man. This American man, identified only as Mikey, is heard screaming in agony and using foul language as his pals eventually succeed in removing a moth and a tick from his ear canal. He said, "I felt him go boom, and I tried to smack and he went in there," in a video that was recorded of this strange incident and uploaded online. Eventually, the insects were removed by his friends, not a surgeon. You'll be grabbing for a Q-tip to deal with this one. How would you feel if you got a cockroach in your ear? I know a lot of us can't even stand the sight of this nasty insect, but that wasn't the case with Zane Weddings from New Zealand. Zane noticed a block in his ear after some swimming exercises and decided to go to the hospital to get it checked out, only to find out that a dead cockroach was in his ear. Using suction equipment and some tweezers, the doctor quickly removed the bug, and Zane instructed the doctor to keep the bug as a souvenir. He admitted to the doctor that he was unsure of how or when the cockroach entered his ear, but said he would take steps to try to stop it from happening again. Oh, I didn't mention that the cockroach spent 3 days in his ear. I can't imagine, honestly. Guess where John Manley found his long-lost fork? For kids that like to put everything in their mouths, you gotta see this one. For 2 years, a man named John Manley battled with a severe cough and developed pneumonia. Little did he and the doctors know that it wasn't just a natural cough. Dr. Momin Wahidi, Duke's director of interventional pulmonology, eventually learned of Manley's plight and had to use a motion camera to thoroughly check why he had a cough for so long. What they saw was what seemed to be a tumor covered in Wendy's lungs, but it was a 4-inch plastic fork. During a dinner at the eatery, it appears that Mr. Manley ingested a jagged piece of a Wendy's fork by accident and was unaware of the piece of plastic moving down his windpipe. Thank goodness he was saved. Starting now, things get even scarier. Keep watching until the end. Up to 30 solid magnets and steel balls. We all know that children are curious. They're curious as to what magnets taste like. One such instance included an 8-year-old from Indiana who was taken to the hospital with unexplained stomach problems that later turned out to be caused by more than 30 magnets and metal pieces she had ingested. Magnets have the tendency to lock together, and when they do, they don't care if they're inside 2 distinct organs or not. In the end, the girl did well, but the doctors still considered her lucky to be alive because an x-ray of her showed a constellation of potential causes of death. An entire cutlery store was found inside this woman. Sometimes we have the urge to eat strange things, and whenever we feel that way, we shouldn't. Margaret Dalleman, a 52-year-old woman from the Netherlands, went to the hospital complaining of excruciating stomach pains. What looks like a massive dense squid was seen in her x-rays, and over 78 spoons and forks were removed one by one after they unzipped the woman. 78? That's crazy! The puzzling need to consume objects that are not food is referred to as pica, and it's a well-known mental oddity. When we reach puberty, we often lose our insane need to consume unusual things, but some people continue to eat tires and engine components long into adulthood. It's interesting to note that Dalleman never ate a knife in all the years she consumed stainless steel. That would have pierced her stomach into pieces. How about a spider in your chest? Despite the fact that humans have always been totally terrified of spiders, Dylan Maxwell had a spider inside his chest for 3 days. But wait a minute, how did that happen? Dylan was on vacation in Bali, only to wake up with a 2-inch long red trail from his navel to his chest. Apparently, the spider found its way inside his stomach and was having a mini holiday inside his chest. Thankfully, it was successfully removed by the physicians, but not without leaving a scar behind. Enjoyed the video? Now watch this one.